Hey, what's up guys? It's me, Devin, and I'm here with one of my favorite indoor succulent houseplants that will also flower. Not many succulent houseplants are going to flower, but the Kalanchoe blossfeldiana is one of the longest blooming houseplants, longest blooming succulent houseplants that I know. So I wanted to do a video kind of, dissecting this plant, showing you exactly what care is needed, how to get the most out of it, and how to make it look beautiful year round. Because a lot of people, when they get to this stage, the end of the blooms, they think, oh my gosh, look, it's dying, it's dead, what did I do? And then throw it away, and then no, it's clearly not dying, it's clearly not dead. Yeah, the flowers are done with, and the plant's gonna need to rest a little bit before it can create the next flush of flowers, but it's perfectly healthy, and I'm gonna show you guys exactly what you need to do to ensure your Kalanchoe is remaining healthy to get the most blooms out of it year in and year out. Okay, so you can kind of see the three stages that I have. This one, my beautiful pink, is in perfect flower mode, and you can also see there are some beautiful buds right here on the horizon as well. And that's what we love about the Kalanchoe is they produce a lot of buds, so it allows them to bloom kind of for a few months at a time. And then you can see the yellow is starting to lose its luster, it's starting to lose its flowers, and then the orange has in fact finished flowering. Okay, so first and foremost, let's just go through some of the kind of conditions that these plants need to thrive. So it's a succulent, so we know. I'm going to pull off a piece of foliage and show you. This foliage, my fingers are going to be a little bit moist now. Can you see my fingers glistening from the moisture inside the leaves? Yeah, that's what a succulent is. It holds the moisture within the foliage, and that allows the plants to really handle going long periods of time without actually needing to be watered. It's not that they don't need to be, yes, they don't need to be watered. They also don't like to be watered, because if you do water them too often, they will get fungusy and gross, and that can lead to death, premature death. So the real first key is the watering situation. And as a succulent, as a plant, the difference between the summer and the winter is going to be different, of course, just like our needs from summer to winter are different. But inside the house, if it's, right now it's in August, I have mine in a brightly lit room. I'm watering my plant about once every 10 days or so. And the way to really determine whether or not it needs to be watered is, you can just take your fingers and push it in the soil, and if it feels moist, then go ahead and let it be. But if it feels very dry, like super dry, that means go ahead and water it. Now, when we're actually watering our plants, you take your watering can and you water at the base. Water the soil and give it a nice drink of water. Water it until you're seeing beautiful. You're seeing water come out of the base, out of the bottom of the pot. Yes, succulents need great drainage. You need to have a pot that has holes in the bottom. You can see holes in the bottom here, that it's going to allow the moisture to exit out the base, out of the bottom, and land in your handy dandy tray. Or if you're watering in the sink or in the shower, wherever is convenient for you. And then you take the excess water and you dump it somewhere else. Okay, so that's step one, watering properly. Now I'm going to wait probably 10 to 14 days to water it again. Now this is a plant, as a succulent, many of us will often put succulents in too dark of locations around the house. This is a succulent, it doesn't want to be in that, that intense southern facing window, but it also doesn't want to be in that northern window in the middle of winter. It needs to be getting bright light pretty consistently. And that is what's going to allow it to flower. If it's in too dark of a situation, what happens is that the actual leaves will start to be really nice. They'll be very stretched out, because they'll be reaching for the light, reaching. We don't want that. We want that beautiful, compact, thick, bushy growth like you can see here. And this is a beautiful example of the kind of growth habit we're looking for, and it's only going to achieve that when it's planted or when it's growing in an area with sufficient light. Not enough light, it will get spindly, it will start to reach, and it's not going to look very pretty. But likewise, in the middle of summertime, when our houses are hotter or warmer, if you're not using air conditioning and it has more sunlight, it's going to probably need more water. In the wintertime, less water. Okay, so speaking of winter, fall, winter, that's really often when we see these plants for sale, when we see them in flower. And the reason is, okay, yes, it's a commercial thing. People, growers want to sell you a plant that's blooming in the winter time when nothing else is blooming. The middle of winter is actually not when they typically would bloom out in nature. You're not going to see in their native Madagascar, you're not going to see Kalanchoa blooming in the middle of winter. They're going to be blooming just after winter has ended. These are plants that are called photoperiodic, like a poinsettia. They need to be sheltered in darkness for 12 to 14 hours for up to around 6 weeks. And that's what the professional growers are actually doing prior to selling them to you, is they're keeping them in darkness for that 6-week period. So that is actually what allows the plants to set buds. But when they're not in flower, they need to be in pretty good sunlight. So anyways, okay, back to the flowering situation. Okay, so after you're starting to see buds, let's say you buy your plant, it looks beautiful like this, then it starts to look like this, then it starts to look like this. So what do I do in the meantime? What do I do in the interim? Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my nice, clean, sharp shears, and I will go down and I will trace down to this flower stem, and I'm going to just cut this old flower off. I'm going to cut this one off too, and then I'm going to go around and cut all of the old ones off. Make sure you're not confusing an old flower with a flower bud. Let me see if I can get a good example. Okay, so the flower bud, it has a similar tone or similar color as kind of the old flowers. It's not fully bright, it's a little bit dark brown. Make sure you're not cutting off the flower buds, only cut off the old flowers. Okay. And what happens when you start cutting off the old flowers, that is going to allow the flower buds that haven't bloomed yet to bloom a little bit more quickly. So that's kind of the nice thing, is you're encouraging new growth, new flowers to happen when you're cutting off the old growth. It's like, you're shedding skin so new skin can grow. It's kind of a gross example, but it's the way it works. It's nature. And I can see while I'm doing this, I can see I am actually seeing flower buds that I didn't notice before while I'm cleaning this off. Okay. Okay, so now you have your nice, beautiful plant like this, and let's say it's middle of January, and now you're thinking, all right, so now I have this green plant. How do I, what do I do to make it bloom again? Well, like I was saying, this is a plant that responds to shortness of daylight. It needs to be in darkness in order to set bloom. So if you want to prepare this plant to be blooming in that kind of fall, winter time again, that following season, okay, what you need to do, okay, during the spring, during the summer, let it have a nice sunny location. This is an outdoor plant. All house plants, all indoor plants are outdoor plants. So if you have space, if you have an area, place it outside in filtered light, in bright light all summer long. As long as the temperatures are above 50 degrees, this plant is going to be very happy outside. And then if you want to go through the trouble, personally I don't do it, but if you want to go through the trouble to get it to bloom at that fall, winter time, you have to let it sit in darkness for 12 to 14 hours for 6 solid weeks. So what does that mean? Putting it in a dark room where there's not going to be people turning on, even like if you just turn on a light like that, it's going to disrupt that cycle, and that is going to keep it from creating flower buds. So you don't want to do that. So you really need to either put it in a closet, put it in somewhere where no one's going to be entering, where there's no light, or all day during the daytime or all night for 12 hours, let it hang out in a box. I know it seems really weird. It does seem weird. But this is how you do it if you want to get it to bloom at a specific time. And really, legitimately, you could honestly do this at any time during the year. It just so happens that growers typically do this so that they're blooming for you in that fall, winter time. Or if you're like me and you don't care about when it blooms, but you want it to bloom again, just let it be normal and it's gonna bloom. It's, you know, here in Pennsylvania, from daylight savings November until whenever that March or whatever, I'm gonna have 12 hours of darkness in a room naturally. So I will keep it in one of those rooms, and then it's gonna bloom naturally for me in the springtime, and then I'm gonna have this beautiful coverage of flowers in the springtime. And for me, I don't care if it blooms in the fall or winter or in the spring. I would honestly prefer it to just bloom at its natural time. So that's really how you get it to bloom again. And while it's in that dormancy stage, if you are gonna do this whole cool, you know, put a box on its face look, definitely don't fertilize during that time. But as soon as you're done with it being under that box, then you can fertilize it. And one last thing, where did my scissors go? One last thing to get it looking great and keeping it looking healthy is that, you know, you'll often see foliage that either crisps up like that, has some brown edges. You take your fingers and you just kind of take them off. You can use scissors, but you really don't need to now that I'm, you know, actually doing it. And that's going to help it look healthier and cleaner, just generally speaking. We like to have healthy, clean flowers and plants. And then, you know, put it in something pretty. I have this gorgeous pot that my mom created. She did these mosaics on the outside. And if I just drop it in there, it's too low. So what I've done is I try to get really creative and just find random stuff around the house. I have this weird little wooden thing. I just stick it down there, and now it's at the perfect height. Now I have this beautiful plant, sits on my desk, brings me color, brings me happiness, brings me cheer, and it's very easy to grow. The Kalanchoe blossfeldiana, it's one of the very best succulents to grow inside the home. Very low maintenance, and it brings gorgeous, colorful flowers in a time frame that you can kind of pick and choose. So anyways, it's a plant, if you've seen them at the stores before, or if you've seen it around before and you've never tried it, now is the time to try it. Bring some beauty, bring some color to your home with the Kalanchoe blossfeldiana. Anyways, I'm Devin Wallin, and I'll catch you later.